The king of the mountain.
Hello.
What's up, Mr. Shoot?
Yes,
Good to see you.
Welcome. Thank you to coming to Mount Tune. This is where we've been squatting with the car last year or so.
The car. This is the car.
The big bad wolf.
There's just so many questions. But yeah, it's good to see you. So we had a chance to hang out for the past couple of years, especially us doing a lot of stuff for Yokohama, being able to cover your efforts at Pikes Peak. Where did this all start? What's the story of you and Pikes Peak?
Me and Pikes Peak, it's a good one actually. I got racing there sort of like by an accident, let's say. It was back in 2017. I was working at an EV startup called Faraday Future, and they wanted to go and take their prototype up the mountain. I was working there at the time as an engineer, and they knew I had an international racing license, and they wanted to put the entry in. And they said, hey, can we put you on the entry list? We'll probably end up getting a Formula E driver or somebody else to drive the car, but we just need somebody for this moment so we can get the entry in. And I said, yeah, of course. You might end up racing it though. I'm like, that's fine. That's all good.
I don't even know like how to unpack that. You might end up racing Pikes Peak, no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at the time that somebody asked me that, and I was like, is this a trap? Well, this seems to be the easiest yes I've ever heard. But I didn't want to get my hopes up too much because obviously that it may not have happened. But I started to realize that I probably was going to be the driver, about a month or so after we'd put the entry in and I'd learned about it. So at that point I was getting very excited and busy learning the mountain on a simulator. That was the next thing I started doing.
So 2017, what vehicle did you drive?
So that was in the FF91, which was like 2.5 ton, 1,000 horsepower electric SUV. Really wasn't a race car in the slightest. We took it there as a engineering exercise to go and prove out this prototype in an extreme condition that Pikes Peak is. And overall it's actually pretty successful.
And then from that, you pretty much fell in love with the mountain.
Yeah.
And you needed to come back with something proper, like a true weapon.
That's it, yeah. That first year, it was surprising how easy I found it and how at home I was on the mountain, very comfortable. And I looked around me and everyone else was struggling. And at that point, I kind of realized to myself, I could actually go and win this. I could be pretty good up here. And the car itself, wasn't a proper race car, so I always wanted to go and do it in something really, really racy. So at that point, I actually worked with Faraday and came up with a concept for an electric single-seater to come back for the next year. And that was 80% designed, ready to go for 2018, and we would have been racing against the ID.R with this little electric single-seater. Unfortunately, they pulled out of the program just as the entry went in December time, but still the group of people that was on that team from that first year, we all still wanted to go and race. So we were figuring out a way to go and compete at the mountain. It was always to go and compete for the overall win. We looked at doing it electric still to start with, really expensive and too much to do in the time we had. So we ended up using our contacts and our knowledge to essentially find one of these cars, go and pick one of these cars out. This car itself, what stood out was the Honda K20 engine, and that year we had actually got the engine deal that Romain Dumas had been using with his Norma in the years previous when he'd gone and won the race. At that point, he'd won it 3 times, and we took his 3 times winning engines from HPD and slotted it into this car, basically.
So why this chassis? Why did you look out? There's so many chassis, open wheels, club racers, things that you could have used for the mountain. Why this one?
So this one, we picked it because it natively came with a Honda K20. These style of cars are what's called a CN2 car, which is an old endurance class created by the FIA and ACO, a decade ago now. And there was a fair few of these cars about. You could get a Ligier, a Norma, the Wolf.
That's what this is. This is a Wolf.
This is the Wolf, yeah.
Got it.
So there's a range of cars there. So first of all was a K20 car, which we knew had the headroom for the performance. And then the next thing was knowing that we had to put a load of downforce on the car and put a lot more tire on the car. Those 2 things are key to being fast up there.
Yeah, because this was meant to be an endurance racer, then it was never meant to do hill climb at altitude.
At altitude, exactly. So these get hill climbed in Europe. The rules there are quite restrictive. They run closed wheel as well. And this car natively came with a closed wheel bodywork on it. But where I wanted to take the car was to put, these bigger tires on and much bigger wings. And what you have with these, fully enclosed cars is a very slippery, aerodynamically efficient car, but you run out of room to put the big wings on. And also, that bodywork needs to run very, very close to the ground, and we're not able to do that at Pikes Peak. We have to run at a higher ride height. So the Wolf we picked out because the tub was like a single-seater. And then you bolted the fender pods over the tires. So we could just go and remove them, and it'd be like an open wheeler on the front end.
It's crazy because I never even questioned what this was. Like, I always assumed that this was meant to be open wheel to begin with.
Yeah.
But, with the calculations that you guys have done, you've actually realized that it's faster as an open wheel versus having a complete slick and slippery, and who knows, maybe more aerodynamically efficient?
Yes, so it's getting to that point now where this isn't so dissimilar to a fully enclosed front end. That reason being, this front wing is so big, it creates a huge wake of low pressure behind it, and so it's kind of like virtual bodywork at this point. And you go and look at the lift to drag figures as well as the drag figures, they're not so dissimilar now. But not only are we creating the downforce, and even more so, because you can make more like this, we're saving weight because there's less bodywork on there.
Got it.
What you got to remember at Pikes Peak, because the air is so thin, you immediately get a drag reduction. So the car is already way more slippery, up to 40% more slippery, right? Because it's 60% the air density. But you also lose the downforce at that same ratio. So you're never really after true efficiency, you're after just raw downforce. And that's what you got to focus on.
Let's kind of get into it. Is it possible to remove some of the body work?
We can take the rear end off.
Okay.
Might need some help.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so super simple. Lift up at the back. Get it off the pin.
My God, it's bending. It's okay?
Yeah. There you go. Now grab the hand under here, lift it, kick it up a bit forward. Slide it there. And then we'll go.
So it's...
Yeah, we'll go around here.
Like this?
Let's go and tilt it this way if you can. And then that will stand up.
Oh, it just stands by itself.
Yeah, ta-da! It's not windy in here, so we're all right.
Okay, all right.
Here we have it.
You were actually planning on taking this apart.
Yeah, today it was going to get set up and we're going to start pulling the engine out. So
Got it.
I already had the bodywork off, so we threw it back on. There might be a few bolts missing under here, but
No worries. I appreciate you doing that.
no, it's all good. It's perfect timing.
I don't even know where to begin. I mean, you guys have obviously had a couple years to develop this.
Yes.
And it's just gone faster every single time.
That's it.
And who knows, even in its final form, or in this form, you don't even know how fast it could go because you never had a full run.
We've never had that full run yet. It's amazing. I've run the race 5 times now, won it overall 3 times, and I'm still yet to have a clean run to the top of the mountain on race day.
What's crazy is on Romain Dumas' run in 2018 was a clean run.
Yeah.
You know, the last time that the record was smashed, it was like perfect.
Yeah, it was, I think even actually for his run, they started to have a little bit of weather coming in, and I think they might have had a little bit of a car problem near the top. So the rumor I heard was there was about 10 seconds in there they maybe had in that car in Romain on a perfect day.
Jeez.
So that's helpful for me to know that if we can start matching sector times, that's actually really, really good for us. And even if we're just maybe a second or 2 off, there's still a shot at that overall record. I think this last year we just weren't quite there, if I'm going to be honest, for that overall. I think we would have been very close to Loeb's time. So like between an 8:10 and an 8:20. I think that is in the car as it sits right now.
That's really good, though.
Yeah,
because honestly, when we watched Sebastian Loeb go up in his that Peugeot, I was thinking to myself, I would never see a car go faster than that because it physically looked incredibly fast.
Yeah,
it was moving, and it just like the ID.R Pikes Peak. Both of those vehicles moved so much air.
Yeah.
You could see it moving through time-space as it's removing the dust from the track and from the surrounding area of where it is.
That's it, they're just like big vacuum pumps. What I find amazing in comparing onboard, so I do a lot of comparisons between the ID.R and this, and the same with Loeb's, just to understand where there is still more time to find from a car setup and design perspective as well as a driving perspective. What I find amazing is how similarly paced this car and the Peugeot is. 2 very, very different cars. That's all-wheel drive, that's a closed cockpit. This is an open-wheel prototype. But you go and put them side by side, very, very similar. Even on the top section, it's only when it gets to like the really bumpy bit near the top, which is, I mean, the road has changed in that period of time. The tarmac was fresh when that first laid down. That's where we give up seconds and seconds. But the rest of it, you just see the things side by side. They're doing exactly the same thing.
You mean it looks like we're watching the video footage in fast forward.
Yeah.
Like when we see this going through the trees, especially down below, when it's those switchbacks where it's like, I just cannot believe how fast you're changing directions in this thing.
We're pulling like 4G through those turns. That's actually where we're maybe even a little bit quicker than the ID.R. Down at the very bottom where it's fast and flowing, this has more downforce compared to the mass of the car. So it's actually...
Right, because the car itself was way bigger, way heavier, and it just has to carry the battery weight down below.
Yeah.
So the thing that's really most interesting to me is the power plant, because this is similar to what you find in a street car.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Like Honda in general with the K series, I feel like changed the game.
They did.
With racing and with motorsports in general, developing a motor like this. So like, tell me about this package.
So this is a Honda K20. From an engine program standpoint, its roots first came from a land speed record car. We worked with Aaron Hale at HPD on this spec of motor, and he'd run it previously in a CRX that's done now 230 mile an hour. We actually still it was in a push to get an engine together to go and run a record, so we lent parts from this motor to him, did that 230 mile an hour, and then the parts went back into here for Pikes Peak. He developed that spec. The spec of the motor is, it's fully built, but it's not crazy exotic. There's not really anything custom on there. You can buy everything that goes into this motor.
But it's still 2 liter?
So it's now a 2.1 liter.
Okay.
So we're bored out to 88 mil on it. So it's just a bore. The stroke's stock crank, ductile iron, liners, sleeves in the block itself. And then up top, we're still using the factory rockers, so it's still got VTEC on it. Uprated valves and springs, and we're using the Drag Cartel 3.2 cam as well on it. So we have a vernier adjustable exhaust, which we've timed to how we want it, and then the intake is still using all the VTEC. So we got a load of adjustability there. I'm sure there's a few other things, but that's like the fundamental spec of it all.
So then, at altitude, at start line, how much power does it make?
I think it's about 600 crank at the start, and it probably goes down to about 500 by the top. Yeah.
So that is so incredible to me, because in terms of like cars that have been making that time, it's so down on power.
The ID.R was also down on power when you look at peak numbers. So the ID.R was 500 kilowatts, so 670 horsepower, and that's a much bigger car, but that made that power all the time, and it was instant. This is the number one mistake I see any competitor do when they're setting up their cars for the mountain. They tell us all these peak numbers and how much bigger turbos and all this to go and make that crazy power on the mountain. But when you go and look at the duration of time where your motor is, or you're at full throttle and you're hitting boost target, add up all those seconds, it's like a handful of seconds over a whole run, because it's a twisty road. And we're hitting full throttle way more than everyone else because we've got the downforce, because that's what we're pushing through. So it's, peak numbers are really, really misleading, and I'd always push people towards too small a turbo than too big. Because even now we get into headaches with response and lag and spool and all this good stuff near the top of the mountain. And it's that delicate balance between big enough for the power, but small enough for the response.
Yeah, because anytime you're waiting for lag, you're losing time.
Exactly. And it only gets worse as you go up. And when you think about time, you've really got to be on it at all the low speed corners. Because like if you come off of a hairpin and you're waiting, you're half a second for it to come on to boost, you're only doing 25 mile an hour and you're waiting for it to kick in. If you're doing 130 and it's a bit slow to respond, doesn't matter, you're still doing 130 mile an hour.
So then, is there a way, because it is a turbo car, to tune it out where you're making the same power from the start line all the way to the top?
No, and you wouldn't want to. And I think that's the point, is if you have a turbo big enough to keep making the power at the top, it's going to be too big. I always say with the mountain, it's like you're running a restrictor on your turbo. It's just the restrictor size is the size of the inlet of the turbo. You're going sonic with that air going in. And that relates then to shaft speed. You start overspinning the turbo as that air goes sonic on the way in, losing efficiency.
So then how much boost is this creating then?
So we're running 25 pounds of boost, and that's probably an ambient of about 10 psi, so it's like 35 to 37 absolute is all we're putting through it. So it's not huge. The engine's very volumetrically efficient as well, so that really helps us.
Yeah, it's also a weight thing too, right? I'm sure it being an inline 4 turbo is just so much lighter.
It is, yeah. It's tough to beat. I mean, this is a package. Like the only way really to go and beat this is to go for something like actually that there, which is an IndyCar motor, right? That's what we're looking at for a better power.
But the price is like
starts popping up, yeah. Because there's so many parts available to go and build this thing. Like you said, what Honda did when they developed this motor, even now people are kind of copying the layout in other motors.
So then tell me about the transmission then.
So transmission is SADEV, it's an SLR 82. Great gearbox, sequential 6-speed, and it's also a structural transaxle, so you'll see all the suspension hanging off of it. So this is taking all the load from the tires and then putting it, the engine is semi-structural. You can see these trunnion frames on the side, which take a lot of the loading, but the engine is also taking some of the loading as well.
That is so insane. I love the dual purpose part of that. And I mean, it's got to have so much stress just
has.
in this area. I
Yeah.
mean, considering how big this wing is,
Yeah.
and it's like a triple decker in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it is crazy.
It terrifies me as well.
So is this one of those cars, I hear a lot of people, especially with open wheel cars, is this one that technically could drive upside down if it was going fast enough?
Yes. Yeah, it'll make its weight in downforce. So you couldn't actually drive upside down at that point because you need a bit more to then make your traction on your tires, ignoring all the problems with oil and all that. But it makes its weight in downforce high 60s, low 70 mile an hour. So it's
So quick.
I think when we talk about this, aside from maybe like a crazy autocross car they're not going very fast top speed wise, like this car probably has the most downforce to weight out of any car ever to exist. We make 2.2 metric tons of downforce at 124 mile an hour, so 200 kilometers an hour. And the car with me in is about 650 kilo.
So do you think the only way to kind of improve on that is to have something like that fan car at
Yeah.
Goodwood Festival Speed? Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine something like that at Pikes
Yeah, I
Peak? Maybe it
could.
wouldn't last.
I've chatted to him a little bit about it. That technology is...
Of course you have.
Yeah, it's super cool. Could be really disruptive for the mountain because where that technology is its best is in these mid and low speed corners because this only makes its downforce at speed, not from zero. Most of the corners of Pikes Peak, you know, are in the 30 to 80 mile an hour range, and that fan system would absolutely kick butt in that situation. The headache you got is the road's so rough up there, and
Right.
the McMurtry car itself needs that fan to work well. Once that fan loses seal, it's not the fastest race
It's
car
probably
ever.
instant.
It can, I'm not super familiar with the system, so I can't say that, but I do know with other fan cars, if you lose that seal, it's a bad time. So, yeah,
Crazy.
it's figuring out that system for the mountain. I'm sure you will see a mid to low 7-minute run if you can make that work.
So let's talk about some other parts of this. I see some crazy brake duct cooling.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is because not only is it less air for the engine, it's also less air
That's
for
it.
cooling.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is stock. This is actually really worse for wear. I should buy some new stuff, but it's fine. Yeah, cooling is just a big headache up there. Huge headache because, yeah, everything is less efficient. We have a great cooling system with some custom coolers from PWR. We have an air-to-air intercooler with really efficient tubes and fins in there, and stacked on the back of that is an oil cooler.
Oh,
as well.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
So this is the oil, or this is the water to air.
Air
and then
to
the
air.
oil cooler. Oh, air to air.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this side is just for that.
Yeah.
And then what's
This
on that
this
side?
is water, this side.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's actually a pretty big core if you get your, if you look in there, that's a pretty big
It's kind
one.
of interesting that it's
Yeah.
so sideways,
Yes. Yeah.
but it still is able to force the air through it.
It is, yes. The main thing for cooling is surface area on the cooler, and by tilting it over, it allows you a longer cooler to fit in. And you're basically balancing the ability to have the air being happy turn the corner. But the way, if you look at the entry into the side pod, you have this, you know, it's a properly shaped duct, so it's tight here and then it opens, and this creates a positive pressure. So you get a huge amount of pressure pushing through. So
You have to have like a armor, like a shield there,
Yeah.
because
All the
otherwise
rocks and stuff.
rocks will hit it at 150 mile
Yeah.
an hour and
Oh,
go
this-
straight through.
It's unbelievable. So we had covers on beforehand, and then they're a little not quite as efficient as now what we're running, which is a honeycomb in front of it. But we get so many rocks in here. I just pulled these side pods off, and it's like a couple kilos of rocks that just get sucked in and stuck under the
Jeez.
tub. Yeah.
This is so cool. Okay, so and then it's an electric water
Electric
pump?
water pump. Yeah, that was new for this last year. That just helps us separate our engine speed and cooling requirements. Also, the pulley setup we had before looked really janky. We had a little pump like sit on the water pump sat on here, and it had like maybe an eighth of the pulley of wrap around it. So I didn't like that.
It's really cool also that this compartment is like part of the cooling system. It's like where the air evacuates.
That's it. Yeah. So the engine cover and this rear wing actually helps evacuate all the air through there.
So
Yeah.
is it a thing? I don't know anything about downforce, but
Yeah.
is the under tray here creating a lot of the downforce, or is it a lot of the wing?
So actually, in this case, it's both. They work hand in hand. This diffuser is incredibly modest, and what you'll see most of the reason why it makes a downforce is just a completely flat floor under it. So this is how this works. You've got these big wings here, high pressure on top, low pressure underneath as the air is accelerating. This low pressure, you end up having this big bubble under here, and that's why we've got these big end plates, because that helps seal in this low pressure bubble. This then sucks more air through the underfloor of the car, because the diffuser, like this bit of the diffuser here, this kick up, isn't where the downforce is made. The downforce is made right at the throat here. That's where actually the downforce happens. This
And
is
that's
just,
where you want it anyways. It's
yeah,
the
exactly.
closest to the tire.
It's towards the front. So this is sucking air through the floor as well. So you've got the wings sucking the air through, then you've got the diffuser sucking the air through, and then your low pressure zone is sort of, you have a local one here, and then because you just got the general air going under the car, you have one under the cockpit of the car as well. So these wings act like pumps for the floor and also make downforce themselves. So we've ended up with these rear wings, we've made so much more downforce with the floor now that it started to pull through its own fasteners. And that's without changing any of the geometry of the floor. So it's, a rear wing can add downforce right at the front of the car.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all interlinked.
There's just so many cool things on here. Like the suspension is incredible too. This kind of reminds me of what I've seen on Rod Millen's
That's
car.
it, yeah.
Right? So this is like an overall
Yeah, so it's a
damper?
heave spring or third element. So this works basically on the ride height of the car. You can maybe see it move a little bit
Right,
there.
yeah, I see it's
Yeah.
moving when you push it down. So as you go faster,
The downforce,
it's closing it.
that's it, pushes
Got it.
down on the car, this gap closes, and then we engage this third spring.
It's crazy to me, like it's such a simple setup. Is this legal with other racing, or is this a Pikes Peak thing?
Yeah, so any sort of high downforce car should be running these things. Like a GT car doesn't really need it, like a GT3, it's starting to get to that point, but any sports prototype or Pikes Peak car, you will need that extra support, and especially Pikes Peak, where you need to be able to have some suppleness for the bumps as well as support the download as well. So you see this in, all the Le Mans prototypes, actually single-seaters as well, so the bigger winged single-seaters will have it.
Yeah, because
maybe
for those
some
of people
GT
who don't
cars.
understand this, instead of you taking up the slack here on the actual suspension, when the car is getting pushed down, it's taking it up here before it hits this.
So that allows you to keep this spring rate a little softer, so that you can have individual wheel movement. Say you hit a curb or a bump, like the car's able to be soft with that, but have this stiff platform.
That is so neat. I love that.
In just the general ride height of the car. This is, you're essentially flying this car, but the other way around. And the ride height of the car is just so important for how you make that downforce.
So is the fuel cell here?
It is. It's actually this side now. So we
Oh,
have
okay.
to try and balance out the driver weight on one side. We have it this side. It's not ideal because you obviously lose fuel, so the balance of the car left to right will change, but that's how we did it as a lower volume thing. So it's a bag tank inside this cavity.
How much fuel do you lose from one run, top to bottom? Or bottom to top?
Bottom to top is about 7 gallons. Yeah, E85. Surprising actually how much you use going back down again as well. Like when we were looking at fuel usage, just warming the car up and having it idle actually goes through quite a lot of fuel. So when we were sizing the cell, so we brimmed the thing. When we go for our final run, like the tank is just big enough.
Got it. You don't want to run out of gas crossing the finish line.
We hadn't calculated how much extra we would use with anti-lag. That was the
So this is the wet setup, and unfortunately, did you run the wet setup this year? You unfortunately had to.
Yes, we were early on, and the conditions were about as bad as they got with us. We maybe had a couple dry spots there, but it was very much wet tires.
Tell me about the dry setup then.
So both the wet and the dry, these are super formula tires from Yokohama. So really, really cool to get our hands on this product. This is the first time this product's been outside of Japan and been raced. So Super Formula is their top tier open wheel series over in Japan. It's got some big names running it. It's a big deal over there. And those cars corner really, really hard.
And then with those cars, is it like a qualifying tire, or is this just what they run?
Yeah, so they used to have a couple compounds, but now they just have one dry slick compound as well as then a wet tire as well.
So they just do everything on it. They race and they...
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Would it benefit you more if it was a different compound that was softer?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So what's hard on the mountain is A, the ambient temperature being much lower, B, the surface temperature being way, way lower as well. You know, you're talking barely above freezing near the top. And the last thing is then the amount of energy you can put into the tire to keep the heat in, and just the nature of the layout of the course. You don't have like these big braking zones and hard cornering all the while, so you're always losing that tire temperature.
What's up here in the hood area?
I'll show you. This is front suspension.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
So same as, or similar to the rear, a bit more simple in layout.
There's rope here?
Yeah, that's wheel tethers. So if you knock a corner off, you don't want the wheel rolling down the mountain.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's part of the rules.
Hopefully you never have to use this.
Right, yeah.
But like, what's in here? Just the steering? That's where your feet are.
That's where my feet are, yeah.
Oh, that's the pedal box.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Steering column.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, and then it's manual steering.
Yes, yeah, no power assist or anything like that. It's physically driving this car is really hard work. And you'll see on some of the onboards, like your hands just getting thrown around. I have the wheel almost jumping out my hands on some of the high-speed stuff where you hit a bump whilst you're full load. It's hard to hold on to.
Would it be beneficial to have power steering?
Nah.
What a true driver,
Too
true
heavy.
racer. Incredible. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the cockpit a little bit.
Yes.
There's a kind of a fun little trinket here. What is the
That's
story
it.
behind this?
So in 2021, we almost didn't make the race as the car was on the water coming back from the UK over. It arrived literally the Wednesday before race week. And when it finally did turn up, we unloaded it out of the container on the back of the truck. And in the truck, just randomly, was that?
Okay.
And we were like,
so you just attached it to the car.
So we Velcroed it, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Trinkets find us each year, and we run with one, and that was the I guess the 2021 one.
That's awesome.
Audi
okay,
Quattro,
so
yeah.
what are we looking at in the cockpit here?
So we have the 12-volt battery. On top of the 12-volt battery is the master cutout relay. We then also have the fire extinguisher bottle here, and then we have the air shift system, which is a pump and a bottle. And then finally, Velcroed to the side is the ECU and PDM as well, both Motec.
So, and then,
So this is
do you run oxygen then?
I do, yes. That would sit in here.
Oh, okay.
It goes over
All
there.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you need, because it's so physical to drive this car, it is helpful having that. I find I am most out of breath on the bottom section, actually. So as you go up, although the air is thinner, it's physically not as demanding.
God, and you have some straightaways to kind of relax a little
Exactly. Whereas the bottom, it's just left, right, left, right, left, right, and you're pulling like 3G. So it's qualifying, I'm pretty out of breath once I get to the end of the qualifying
Do you
section.
have to exercise your neck like a lot of F1 drivers?
Yes. It's never good enough. You can never do it the same as driving the thing. This year I had some problems with my neck with just like working late on mills and cold muscles and pulling them, and I had to go and have some, extra work done on it so my head would stay on my body. It's hard work driving this thing, for sure.
This is one of the most serious race cars I've ever featured. It's all business in every way possible.
Yeah.
And
So-
I love it. I think
you.
it's so cool. It's a pleasure to watch you drive it. So then what's this for?
That is the yellow button's the starter motor. The blue one is what we call, that used to be the sendometer, but then we moved the sendometer to the wheel, which is like the boost.
Oh, to increase boost?
Yeah, it's like a boost percentage knob. But what we realized is you just don't be a pussy and run it all the way all the time.
Okay. And then like anti-lag, that actually works?
Yeah, so we have a couple different settings here, 3 settings of harshness. So that will go, and as I go up the mountain, I'll kind of start winding that in to give me a little more. But again, on race day, I didn't run with anti-lag because it was wet.
Yeah.
This car is really drivable. It sounds like an odd theme. You're like, it's got all these crazy things on it, but I set it up so that it's very easy to drive. And
You don't want to struggle.
You don't want to struggle with it. You don't want this snappy, nasty thing. And so a lot of these, again, traction control we have, I ended up not using it because I could drive the thing better than relying on the traction control.
Got it.
So yeah, we got a bunch of stuff on it, and
What is that range button for?
So that's TC range. You got slip, which is a percentage slip target, and then the range is like more of a control strategy part of it, of basically how harsh that will cut in and intervene. So it slips like an overall difference between the front and the rear, and then the range is like how quickly that cuts in.
And this is molded to your hand?
Yeah, we made this wheel with a chap called Superfast Matt, who's a YouTuber. This came about because we moved, this dash used to sit over here, then I had another wheel with a little dash on the wheel. Now it's such a rough ride, and there's so many like kind of bumps going through the wheel, I could never focus on the dash on the wheel. I couldn't see what was going on. So we moved this dash over, I needed an open top wheel for that. And so he built me this wheel, and with all the paddles and grips and all that. So that was a collaboration and a design between the both of us, which made a huge difference. This last year we built up the cockpit as well, cockpit sides here, just so that I had a bit more support in the car, which made a big difference. A lot of this is just figuring out how to drive the thing quickly.
You're pretty much laying down in this thing.
Yeah, you should have you sat in this?
No.
You should have a little.
So like it was a pinch me, I must be dreaming moment when I had a chance to sit in Rod Millen's, the Pikes Peak special.
Yeah, the taco, yeah.
The Tacoma. Like it's like you have to slip into it, and then it's like you barely fit. And I was just amazed at the fact that he could see out of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that he even had enough room to do everything, all the shifting and everything.
I had a little look at that, and it looked very claustrophobic. This, you'll be surprised how much room there is, but also how much more laid back you are. You're really...
Okay, I want to try it.
You
So that'll be the last thing that we do.
Okay.
What do I do to get in?
I'll show you. We'll get the belts out of the way.
So what side do I go in?
You can do either side. I would say maybe come this side.
Okay, this side.
Yeah.
All right, about to get in the wolf, the big bad wolf.
Put your feet on here, not on here.
Okay, got it.
Sit on the cage.
Okay.
And then you lower yourself in. So feet on the bottom of the seat.
Feet on bottom.
Yeah. And then what you want to do is feed your feet into the cockpit and slide your butt down the back of the seat. Yeah. Get that right foot in there.
Okay, otherwise it won't be able to.
There you go.
Okay.
Now keep sliding your butt forward. Keep going. Keep going.
Yo!
Keep going. Keep going. You'll pop into the seat. You on the bottom of the seat yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay. Can I touch the pedals?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So is there a clutch then?
Yeah.
So you have to use it to start.
To start and stop, but yeah, once you're going, you're away.
Got it.
Yeah. So.
This is your windshield.
Yeah.
It actually does a lot, huh?
So much. Unbelievable how much that does, because we ran without it once and my head almost fell off. It is.
So do you have to run padding here so your head doesn't hit?
No. That's kind of padding in itself. It's just stiffer than you're used to. It's a bit like this padding, right? This isn't soft. But when your head hits it in a helmet, it's okay.
I can't believe you go this fast in this.
Yeah. I'm always curious to know what it looks like when I'm driving up there.
Does this have ABS then? No.
No.
Have you locked up before?
Yeah.
It's got to be interesting because you can actually see it lock
You can
up.
see the smoke coming off. Yeah, you can feel it pretty good because there's no.
So I've only driven an open wheel one time. It's the Sierra carts, and
Yep.
that's when I get to see it lock up, and
Yeah.
it's like really kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah, so it helps you with the release from the lockup actually, because you can see the tire start to turn again, and you know you're
Yeah.
good. That's where like a closed wheel, you felt the lockup because the car's sliding, and then you come off the brake, and it takes a little bit for the tire to catch back up.
So the ratio is really, like, it really helps you turn a lot easier.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
It's
so you're-
probably really hard for you to make a 3-point turn in this.
Oh, it's a night. You wouldn't believe what it took to get in here. You know what I mean? It's like Austin Powers.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So the basic lock, even when you're crossed over, the car does not turn. You need to be kind of racing it for it to rotate. So,
Is there a point on the mountain, especially in the W's, where you're like crossed over?
oh yeah, I'll have to adjust the grip on the wheel and then push it around, and I'm on the lock stops.
No way.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
I turn to the
Yeah,
lock stops?
Yeah. So that's it.
Like that?
That's it,
You're
yeah.
on the lock.
Yeah. So again, going up the mountain is never terrifying because I have the weight transfer. I have the weight on the nose, the thing's rotating, happy days. It's coming back down the mountain where the weight transfer is different. The thing just wants to push. And
That is
I can't
crazy.
stay in the lanes on the way down. Like they always have the Pikes Peak meeting, you've got to stay in your lane on the way down. I just can't.
Yeah.
So you've got to time it and look out for people on the way around. But all my scary moments of this have been going downhill, not uphill.
That is incredible. I can't even. Wow.
It's a ride.
And you know what?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about in recent history with Pikes Peak, with you especially, is the fact that your entire team rides on this.
Yeah.
From the start line area to the pits.
To the pits.
It's
Exactly.
hilarious.
The jungle gym. Yeah, I think we had like 4 people on it. You
Oh,
get
it's
2
the
per
best.
side. Yeah.
It's so good.
It's fun.
Wow.
At that point, it's cool because I'm kind of blocked out of the way, and they get to enjoy, their moment as well because they put so much time and effort into the program. It's fun, and I
It's
also get
so
sheltered
cool.
from the champagne, which is great.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this thing. This has kind of been a long time coming. Since I've seen you drive this, I've wanted to feature this just because it's, in a way, it is a lot more relatable than a lot of the other race cars.
Yeah.
Especially because you're a privateer still.
Yep.
You don't have like a big team, big rig. That's
Yep.
like, this is you do this for the love.
I do. Yeah.
And
That's it.
I think that's super cool.
Thank you.
That's what's
Yeah.
cool about Pikes Peak, right?
Yeah.
You can race with Volkswagen and
Yeah, that's it. It's
Porsche and-
almost an advantage in some weird ways because we don't have the corporate goals to go and meet. We just do it for the love, and we do what we think's the best.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a unique motorsport opportunity. Yeah, where we get to make something that really boogies. You're right there.
All right, let's see if I can get out.
You get one knee out, you'll be good.
Crazy.
Imagine if you're on fire.
Yeah, oh my God. I don't want to imagine that. So that's
That's good.
Here?
Yeah.
Got
and
it.
Then, and a little hop, skip, and a jump. From
Yeah,
There.
perfect.
There you go.
Awesome, that's it. Very good. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to support us directly, go to larrychenprints.com. I print and sign every single one of these. This is the perfect gift, or it's the perfect piece of art for your wall.